You're listening to Founder Sessions, a podcast that helps people relate to the reality of startup life. My name is Carl Murray and I am a startup nerd. In each session, I will chat to entrepreneurs about their ideas, their stories, and the challenges they face throughout their journey. Hi everybody and welcome back to Founder Sessions. Today I'll be talking to Lynsey Britton-Lee and Lynsey Harbottle, the co-founders of 50/50 Future. 50/50 Future is a diversity and inclusion training and consultancy company that values difference. 50/50 is on a mission to be a catalyst for inclusion by demystifying diversity and providing solutions to break down barriers. In this session today, we talked to Lynsey and Lynsey about diversity and inclusion for startups, how 50/50 Future is helping companies change the way they think about recruitment, and we have a great chat about what 50/50 Future means to them. All this and more in session 24 of Founder Sessions. Hi everyone and welcome back to Founder Sessions. Joining me today is Lynsey and Lynsey of 50/50 Future. Lynsey and Lynsey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Hi.
So let's get straight into it. Please tell me about 50/50 Future. What is it and what are you trying to do with it?
Okay, so I'll take this one. 50/50 is a diversity and inclusion training and consultancy company, and we work with organisations from all different sectors and sizes, so startups right the way through to global organisations, either on D&I, so diversity and inclusion education, their strategy, or specific programs and interventions. For us, it's not about 50/50 bums on seats. It's very much about equality of opportunity for everyone.
Yeah, it seems diversity and inclusion and getting a good mix of diverse individuals into your business seems to be becoming more and more of the thing to do now, whereas in the past it might have been I'll just hire my friend or who I know. But are you saying that is the case now, especially doing the kind of work that you are doing?
We do see a lot more of it now, which is great because obviously that's what we want companies to be doing, but it wildly varies. So you're still going to get companies who are still doing the thing the same way. Obviously, we've done all of those things before as well. With our background in tech, it was just, you go for a cuppa with someone and go, you're like us, that's great, come on in. And I think we want to really get away from that now. But you've still got all of those workplaces who haven't quite got to that point yet. They're not necessarily even thinking about it, or they just need to be really reactive because something's gone wrong, like office banter, and they find themselves in hot water. So we'd get probably a good mix of those companies who are being really proactive in doing things before that happens and to mitigate that. And then we do get those companies who unfortunately they just need something straight away to fix things.
Yeah, that's so true. I think for early startups, that is kind of the norm, isn't it? It's like, I kind of know what you do, let's get together and do a business. That's kind of how it starts. But at those top level ones, it is a bit, a change is needed. So let's go back in time a bit. How did you both meet?
Oh, this is our years and years story. We need to keep this tight and succinct.
Keep it as tight as we can because we could go on. So I suppose to go right the way back, I was a co-founder of Ignite Accelerator Programme in the region, and through the Accelerator Programme we then needed to find some co-working space for all of the lovely tech startups. So then that organically went into Campus North, so the region's first digital and creative co-working space, and that's where me and Lynn's met. So we had the co-working space and we wanted to grow it, and so we were put in touch because Lynn's actually used to work for one of the companies who had previously been on the Accelerator Programme, so I knew the founder very well. He knew we were looking for someone. Their funding unfortunately
didn't materialise. So that worked out well for us though. So yeah, that's how me and Lynsey first met. So I hired Lynsey in a sales position for Campus North, and then Lynsey became the manager of Campus North.
And from there, we then went on to
do many other
many
things.
other different initiatives, and another company, which is where 50/50 then grew out of. Yeah.
Really cool. I hear a lot about Campus North. I wasn't in the scene when Campus North was a thing, but when you start networking with people and they mention Campus North, you just think, how many people were in that building?
I mean, there was many.
It's so lovely to reminisce and look back, and there was hundreds upon hundreds of founders that would have been in the door or connected with it in one way or another. It was a really magical place that still has a lovely legacy, which we're very proud of and chuffed off.
Yeah, I love hearing the stories of, you know, the places where everyone used to be, and, you know, those sort of hubs where the tech startup kind of kicked on and things like that. It's beautiful. And let's talk about your styles as entrepreneurs. What would you say your styles are, and how do you feel they match up?
So I think between both of us, we've got a very organic style. I think being around like founders and startups for a long, long time, we've learned a lot. So we're not coming into this completely new, although it still has been new with 50/50. It's still been like a learning curve. It's a very different model compared to Ignite, Campus North, Tech for Life, any of those. So I think we've got a very organic style where we are very much open in our mindset to different opportunities. You know, those serendipitous moments where you meet people, you talk and collaborate, and something comes out of that, and seeing where that leads to and what opportunities. So always looking at what we're doing and iterating it all of the time. I think between us as founders, we've got a really good balance, because I've definitely got one way of doing things and would not be able to function without Lynn's doing the other. So I think we've got a really good balance of skill set, where I think Lynn's is much more like logical and hands-on with operations and knows how to do stuff. I think I'm a bit more like, it feels a bit like this today.
Which is a beautiful combination, and, you know, hats off to solo founders, because it's hard graft, as everybody knows, and it's a roller coaster. And the fact that we are fortunate enough to be in a partnership and have each other for those highs and those lows, that really helps. I think we complement each other beautifully, and we have something different to give, and we can have that relationship where we challenge each other and it's totally fine, but we're really proactive and quick to act to make things happen.
Yeah. No, I think you see co-founding teams, and you say, oh, this person's the bit of the tech whiz. They're the ones that are probably a bit more reserved, you know, but they know what they're talking about. And then you get the other one who's a bit out there and sells the company and all that, and they match up pretty well. So I think matching styles and as co-founders is such an interesting dynamic to see. I love saying it. I want to go back on your sort of driving force to do 50/50 future. What is the main sort of goal for you both? Not really company, just like personal. What is the driving force to do 50/50 future?
I think it's like pretty much in our mission statement. I think, you know, there's a lot of people out there who know about diversity and inclusion but don't really either get it or they don't know what to do about it. So it's all about demystifying that for them, and then help them provide those solutions to break down barriers. And that's all we want to do, whatever form that comes in. Obviously, each company is unique in the culture and the makeup. A lot of them experience similar challenges and issues, but they'll all show up in different ways and have different ways of tackling them. What we want to do is we want to work with just as many people as we possibly can to open more doors of opportunity, so that we do get more equality and we reduce those barriers to inclusion. I think it's really important for people as individuals within our workplaces to act upon it, but for society as well. So I think it's kind of got those threefold benefits.
And when you are working with other companies, what is sort of the first thing you look for? Like, you know, do you look for anything in particular, or is it just let's go in there, see what the vibe is, and then we go from there?
Usually they'll approach us either because they want to invest in ED&I because it's the right thing to do, or because of a challenge. That challenge tends to be recruitment, particularly over the last couple of years. That's been a common theme. because I think it's the most visible area of an organisation where you can see the demographic or the breakdown of applicants applying and the current makeup of the workforce. For us, we kind of like to take clients through a bit of a journey and go one step back. So it always starts with education, and we're big believers that, you know, we don't know what we don't know. Nobody can be an expert in this field. Yes, Lynsey and I'll have a lot more experience because we do it on a day-to-day basis, but let's just get everybody on the same page and get to a point where we're all comfortable and confident to have conversations around potentially uncomfortable things. Once we've kind of laid those foundations in that education piece, it's then we can really deep dive into a company's strategy, and whether that's tweaking an existing one or starting from scratch, and putting something in place that's achievable and realistic with goals that have been measured and aligned rather than plucked from the air, and slow steps towards steady progress and chipping away at it over a number of months and years, because it's a long game. It doesn't fix or change overnight.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You know, if you step into a company that's been going for 20 plus years, at a click of the finger, their whole approach won't change. It is sort of that nurturing that change throughout the company. And I think, from my point of view, when you see those businesses really understand their diversity inclusion, they always seem to go on to do bigger and better things. Why do you think that is?
I think when some companies are authentically invested in diversity and inclusion, they live and breathe that in their culture, so they attract that diverse workforce. That in itself is going to breathe innovation and creativity and that resilience internally that allows them to be agile and quick and reactive and keep up to date with customer demands, dealing with stakeholders, clients, and that gives them an edge. And there's lots of research to support, you know, the benefits of an inclusive, diverse team, and what that can bring, not only ethically and morally, it being of course the right thing, and that would be our driving force, but also the commercial benefits of that, and the legal benefits too, making sure that we're mitigating risk where possible and protecting our employees more than anything.
I think you obviously get those sectors, and obviously within companies as well, in certain departments, where you get those carbon copies because you're attracted to people who are like you in those roles. So once you start interrupting that and you start bringing in those culture adds rather than culture fit, then you're getting those diverse perspectives and lenses from people with a different background, different lived experiences. Yeah. So then not only have you got potentially voices that are contributing with something you might not have even thought of before because it's not been your experience, but then you can potentially tap into market opportunities from other groups of people that you might not have even thought of before because you just didn't know about it. So I think there's loads of different reasons why companies would be extremely successful for doing that.
Yeah, it's spot on. It changes the perspective of everybody in the business, the way they think, the way they approach marketing, sales, whatever it may be. And I think it makes working there fun. It gives everyone that opportunity to speak up and say, have we thought about this? Yeah. Whereas in the past, you know, people might not have that opportunity. So I think it's brilliant. I chat to startup founders. You guys have worked with startups. Recruitment, early days is a very, you know, it's a big one. I said earlier, you know, you might just hire a friend because you both have a crazy idea in the pub and you just say, okay, let's do it. But how can startups ensure that they have an inclusive recruitment process very early on?
I think the key is just considering it. And we understand, and we've been there, where, you know, you're protective over this concept and this business idea and you really want to make it work, and you want those people that are trusted around you to help you to do that. So I get why the first hire or your co-founder might be somebody that you know, but don't fall into the trap where you keep collecting people like you, because then that goes back to the carbon copy workforce that Lynn's mentioned before. You really want to focus on the culture add in an organization rather than a culture fit. So you shouldn't be looking for your team members that are going to also be happy to go to the pub on a Friday, or they're going to get the banter in the office, or they're going to be an easy transition. It's about really looking for someone that can add a set of skills and a viewpoint that is totally different from yours to really bring that fresh perspective that's going to help your company gain that strength and grow. Little things that we can do are diversify your networks. So one thing that I think that the Northeast tech scene was maybe guilty of back in the day is it's all very insular, cliquey, incestuous maybe. Everybody knows everybody and people just dot around and move. And again, I totally understand and I get it, and I've been there and I've done that and benefited from it. But try and think beyond your network and who else you can support and engage with. Really think about what skills you don't have that you need, and spend some time writing inclusive job adverts and just thinking about your whole hiring process, and try and make it as streamlined as possible so that we're not getting any bias or subjectivity or gut feelings in the way of actually the results that we're looking for. And you can do that from having, core competencies mapped out, writing a job spec to really align with that so you're staying on track and attracting the right people, making sure that you have got a bit of a process for your shortlisting. So what are you shortlisting on? What's your criteria? Is it going to be the same for every applicant, or on a good day are you going to let more through than others? Right the way to making sure you have a diverse panel. When it comes to interviewing diverse panels, that can be challenging with startups because they often don't have one, diverse teams or a large enough team to even be involved with that. Yeah. But really harness the power of your own network. So there's been organisations in the Northeast where I've went and sat in on their interview process, predominantly white male organisations, didn't have any other perspectives, but with a really strong scorecard of here's the questions we're asking, here's what we're looking for in responses from candidates. I can easily go in, sit down, make all of my notes, and then add a different lens. So try and get that diversity where possible. I could go on about recruitment.
There is loads within that, and I think obviously as a startup, it's the perfect time to start thinking about and getting some of these things in place. I think a lot of the time, and again, we understand it, but I think startups think, either I haven't got time to do all of this, but actually it doesn't take that long to put some of these things in place, and it really adds so much benefit so that you're not like having to rejig everything later down the line when you're in a period of high growth or something and you're like, now I really don't have time to do all of this. So it's really good to think about it right at the very start, and just things like, so that there's probably going to be good flexible working opportunities, so making sure that you're really shouting about that and saying that, what kind of remote flexible opportunities are there, putting something in about reasonable adjustments as well, making sure that people know that they can ask for things that can help them in their work. And just, I think if there's anything, it's to make sure that they get some kind of policies and procedures in place straight away, not waiting until they grow bigger to do that, because they need to be covering their backs and their colleagues, their employees' backs as well, especially from legal perspectives. So making sure they've got fit for purpose policies, and if they need help with that, there's lots of HR consultants that can work with startups now as well, so the help is all there and available.
Yeah, it seems the case of, do it early, because it'll mount up when you do get to that high growth stage and you'll be like, I need to do this now, when really you should have been thinking about it early days. But those are some great tips, and I think as a startup there is a lot of factors that come into play. Funding is always the big one, but I think what the tips you've just give there, they're things that don't require a lot of money to do. You can seem to get them together and really nail that diversity inclusion in job specs, whatever it may be, pretty early and fairly cheaply, I would say.
Yeah, there's loads of free resources available. I mean, all of your policies, you can get templates pretty readily, either online or through local agencies. For example, if they're Chamber of Commerce members, they've got access to a hub of resources online. You will find HR consultancies regionally too that will be more than happy to help out. The likes of ourselves, I mean, we have open diary slots every week for 30 minutes and anyone can book in and pick our brains or ask questions and soundboard. that won't cost anything. Using free gender decoders online to sense check your job ads or your copy costs your time, but not money, and I think that's important.
Yeah, it's so important, because we've said it before, people tend to just fall into the traps of what's comfortable, and I think when you step into that, it's not really uncomfortable, but embracing that, change and diversity, I think it leads to, as we've said again, bigger and better things. As a community, how can a startup community be more diverse? Because, a community is not really an entity, it's sort of a bubble. So how can we make that a bit more diverse?
We can start by understanding that we all have an individual responsibility to play. So it's not just the organisation, it's not just the founder. Every single one of us is responsible for creating that inclusion or exclusion, doing everything in our power to make sure that we are welcoming of those in the sector, those in the startup bubble, those from outside. Really goes back to those networks again. And that might mean that, the events that we put on, making sure they're accessible, making sure that we're advertising them in places that are not the normal default go-to copy and pastes, and really making an effort to publicly put out there, we do welcome loads of different backgrounds and perspectives and people to contribute.
I think one of the main things that I would say, especially in tech, is understanding intersectionality when we're thinking about diversity, and that there are invisible and visible traits, because I do think a lot of the time, and I completely understand that, there's going to be lots of white male, middle-aged and older panels, it's the makeup of the sector. So I do understand the need to get more visible diversity on there as well. But I think sometimes it can get really unfair when if there is an event on, and if there's not a lot of visible diversity, they get absolutely hammered for it. And I just wonder what invisible diversity is actually there that people might not know about, because, if you're looking at a panel and they might have one woman on, or they might have one person from a different ethnic background on there, but do we know the sexuality or any disabilities, neurodiversities, any of those things that are invisible? Do we know any of that to make that judgment that it's not diverse? So I think understanding that there are a lot of invisible traits that can all give us a different perspective that might not be obvious, but also as well where those intersections lie, where all of us will experience some privilege and discrimination. So even if you are a white male of a certain age, you will have other areas of potential discrimination and disadvantage as well. It's not all about pointing the finger at that perceived privilege as well. So I think that's a really important one for the tech sector to understand as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's sort of that saying, don't judge a book by the cover, isn't it? If you walk into an event and you see a panel of middle-aged white men, you just think they're just going to talk about this, and I don't really, it kind of puts you off a little bit. But then when you walk into a different event and see a very diverse panel, you're like, oh, brilliant. But it's that sort of throughout the board, it's never judge a book by its cover. So I think, yeah, that's some really good tips there. And Lynsey and Lynsey, what is the best part of doing this job, this adventure that you're on?
It's the impact. You can have a huge impact just by going in, and actually delivering is always a pleasure for us. We'll get to meet loads of different groups of people, hear loads of different experiences, and people asking great questions and being really engaged in what can be seen as a really dry and compliance type of topic. So being able to get that engagement and then seeing real impact afterwards, some of the case studies that we've had, and whether that's on an individual level where it's people having a light bulb moment and then really having a systemic change to how they view things, or whether it's companies like Sunderland Software City who have had a massive overhaul of their recruitment process just because of those simple recruitment process tweaks that they made. So I think it always makes us feel absolutely amazing, doesn't it, when we hear that?
It's definitely that fuzzy feeling of we're making real change and doing some really great stuff. I think for me as well, one of the best things is the constant learning and challenging. You can never rest on your laurels. We never know everything, we never will. But it's the breadth of people that we get to meet, the stories that we get to hear, the different perspectives and lived experiences. And on a daily and weekly basis, we'll speak to someone or read something and it'll be things that we've never considered because it's not been our view of the world. And that for me is amazing, and it'll never stop because society will evolve, language will evolve, workplaces, and that constant learning journey is just fab. It's exciting, makes it nice to get up in the morning and go to work.
That case study with Sunderland Software City, that's when I first knew of 50/50 Future, because I did see a lot of hires and changes there, and because when you see companies make mass hirings, I think they hired like 9 new people or something. It was incredible. And then I saw on social media your workshops that you were doing with them. That's when I first saw your in action, so to speak.
Oh, that's cool.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Do you know, they were a class bunch to work with, and their team are fab and super engaged, and more power to them because we took them through a program of training and support, and they were the ones in the background very quickly in the grand scheme of things to put in, and I say hard work, not the monetary that we were chatting about before, but tweaking job profiles, looking at policies, understanding how they could really diversify that talent pool. They put in the hard graft themselves, and they are now reaping the rewards, and they have significantly grown, much more diverse, much more engaged team, and that's fab. Like couldn't ask for anything more from the work that we do.
Yeah, so I can understand that is sort of that's the moment where you just sit back and say, yeah, we did good.
We don't do.
Brilliant. And let's talk about the future of 50/50 Future. What do you want to achieve this year and the following years?
So this year's an exciting one because we've just, or we're about to launch. That's not right. We have launched and we're about to close applications for our new diversity and inclusion leadership program. So from the years that we've been doing this now, I think one of the main challenges in organisations is that usually the subject of diversity and inclusion is kind of plopped on someone's desk and they're told to run with it on top of their day job. But often they don't have the knowledge or the skills to know where to start or how to really get that positive impact. So we've designed this program that we're launching in September. It starts. We've got a fab cohort on board already from loads of different organisations and job roles in those organisations. So that'll be fab. It'll run from September until the end of the year. And that's the big thing for this year, is to get that up and off the ground, which it has done, which is good.
Yeah.
And next year, I mean, as a small company, you just never know minute to minute. It can change dramatically within a few months. We always review our like every 6 months, like what have we done, where were we 6 months ago, and what do we want to plan for the next 6 months. And every time you look back at the previous 6 months, you think, wow, like so much has gone on in those 6 months. Things have changed loads. So who knows, but we would just like to work with loads more organisations, different types of companies and sectors, which we are definitely getting in front of now anyway, but just trying to work with as many great people as possible and see where that takes us. Maybe that could lead into having masterclasses and bringing on board other associate trainers, who knows, but watch this space, I suppose.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? And what I love is the passion for it. You just clearly love this, and that's what I like. That's the energy that we need.
I think you couldn't do it if you didn't love it. I think any founder will think that.
Yeah.
If they don't believe in what they do and it's their baby, then it doesn't work, does it?
Very true, very true. And what we like to do on the podcast is we like to pass on some tips and advice to future entrepreneurs that are just starting out their journey. So my question is, what advice would you give those entrepreneurs starting?
Find your sounding board or your partner in crime or network. So if you're going solo, make sure you've got a support network around you, whether that's other founders or friends or family. But it is tough at times, and it can be really difficult, and sometimes you think, what the hell am I doing with my life? So you need people around you to keep you on the straight and narrow and keep you focused. So a support system would be my number one if someone's starting out.
I think for me it would be always iterating. I think you can't rest on your laurels and just know that whatever, even if it's working for you at the time, if you think like, oh, it's working, that's okay, jobs are good, and it isn't.
Doesn't last.
You know, you can't stay still. You've always got to keep on looking at things, re-looking at it, getting those fresh perspectives as well. And if you don't have a team around you that can help you do that, go external, find people who can give you their perspectives, and really, and don't think you know everything. You're probably not, the smartest person in every room. So make sure that you know who to go to and aren't afraid to go, I got that wrong. It doesn't matter. We all get stuff wrong. You just need to rebound from it quickly.
I think another thing is to do it. Sorry, I know you asked for one and we've given you about 40 here. But it's one thing having been employed by Campus North, being surrounded by startups pretty early on in my career. I always looked at them in admiration and thought, hell no, there's no way I would ever start my own company or want that risk or, the hard work that it requires to do it. And just it happened organically, and here we are, and we have done that exact thing. It is scary, but it's the most rewarding thing. It's your business. You're responsible for, in our case, creating that class impact, and you set the rules. So there's some lovely benefits of working for yourself. So don't be afraid.
Yes, there's loads more as well. But we'll leave it for that. They're good tips to leave on.
They're brilliant tips, and they all link very nicely because, just going for it, you can go for it and you can fail. But if you've got that support network around you to pick you up when you have failed a little bit, that's brilliant, because then you haven't got that fear of doing it again. And, it's brilliant. And lastly, please just tell the people watching and listening where they can connect with you both and what they should check out.
Connect with us on LinkedIn. That's probably a good idea. So either through the 50/50 Future company profile or with ourselves, Lynsey Harbottle and Lyndsey Britton-Lee. But any way that you see fit, our website has got our email addresses, our numbers, the link to our diary. Find us on Twitter. Wherever you come across us, drop us a DM or an email and we'll get back to you. Brilliant
stuff. Thank you both for joining me today on the podcast. I've loved having you on and speaking about all the good things of diversity and inclusion. It's a hot topic, and I'm glad we got to talk about it today. From myself and Lynsey, this has been Founder Sessions, and thank you.